So how do you apply laws that are in some cases 100 years old to brand new mind-bending technology? Today, we are diving right into the epic clash between the decentralized world of crypto and the very centralized world of government regulation.
All right, let's kick things off with a question that honestly sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. Imagine a company deciding to fire its CEO, its entire board of directors, and then replacing them all with a computer program. So what happens? Well, this isn't some far-off future. It's happening right now, and it's forcing a massive showdown in courtrooms all over the world.
Okay, so to really get what's going on here, we first need to get a handle on the landscape. This isn't just about Bitcoin anymore. We're talking about a whole new financial frontier with its own set of rules, its own kinds of organizations, and yeah, its own language. And you know, at the very heart of this new world is something called DeFi, which stands for decentralized finance. The whole idea here is to build a financial system that works without the usual gatekeepers. So no big banks, no brokerage firms. It's an entire ecosystem for borrowing, lending, and investing, and it's all running on code.
So, if you don't have a bank, who's in charge? Well, a lot of the time, the answer is a DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization. The easiest way to think about it is like a company that runs on a voting app. The rules are baked right into the code, and big decisions are made by a community of members who vote using special tokens. The idea is there's no CEO, no boss, just the code and the community.
And this quote, man, it just perfectly captures the whole vibe of this new frontier. It really is a bit of a Wild West. This is an actual disclaimer from a crypto token. It's like there are no handrails, no safety nets. It's all on you, the user, to figure out the rules, assuming there are any rules to begin with.
Now, this move fast and break things attitude has regulators, all over the world getting really, really worried. Because on one hand, they see this incredible potential for innovation, but on the other, huge risks for everyday people.
So the Bank for International Settlements, and this is basically the central bank for all the other central banks, they've kind of boiled all these worries down to three main risks. First up, consumer protection. We're talking about scams, fraud, and, people losing their life savings. Second, threatening financial stability, the fear that a big crypto crash could actually spill over into the traditional economy. And finally, damaging market integrity, because all these anonymous transactions can make things like money laundering way too easy.
And you can totally see regulators just trying to keep their heads above water here. This timeline shows how their focus has shifted right along with the market. You see, first it was warnings about ICOs, or initial coin offerings. Then they had to tackle all the social media hype. And now they're trying to figure out NFTs. With every single innovation, the warnings just get more specific and more frequent. They are constantly playing catch-up.
Well, look, warnings only go so far, right? Sooner or later, someone was going to have to do more than just wag their finger. So let's zoom in on a landmark case that really put all this theory to the test in the real world. And that brings us to the story of the Ooki DAO. So this thing started out as a totally normal company called B0X, and they built a crypto trading platform. But then, in 2021, they thought they'd pull a fast one. They handed over control of their entire platform to a brand new DAO they created, the Ooki DAO. The founders basically said, hey, not our problem anymore. The DAO is in charge. Yeah, the US government was not buying that at all. And a year later, the CFTC sued the DAO itself.
So here's the laundry list of what the CFTC said the Ooki DAO was doing wrong. They were offering these super risky financial products to regular folks without being registered, essentially acting like a brokerage firm but without any of the licenses. And this is a big one. They completely failed to put in any of the required safety checks, like know your customer rules, which are there to stop things like money laundering.
So what was the DAO's defense? Basically, you can't sue software. Their whole argument was that it wasn't a person, it wasn't a company, so the lawsuit just couldn't stick. The court was left with this huge question. Is a DAO some kind of legal ghost, or can it actually be held accountable? Well, the answer came back loud and clear. It came in the form of a default judgment and a pretty hefty fine of over $643,000. And the court didn't stop there. It ordered the DAO to shut down its website and permanently cease operations. I mean, this was absolutely huge. For the first time, a US court held a decentralized organization financially responsible.
Okay, so how on earth did the judge actually get to that decision? This really breaks down the incredible legal thinking here. First, they tackled the big question. Is a DAO even a person that can be sued? And the court said yes. They called it an unincorporated association, which is just a fancy legal way of saying it's a group of people working together. So, check. It can be sued. Second, how do you serve a lawsuit to something that doesn't have a mailing address? Well, the CFTC got creative. They served the lawsuit through the DAO's help chatbot and by posting on its online forum. And the court said, yep, that counts. And finally, since the DAO clearly knew about the lawsuit but just decided not to show up, the court ruled against them. Turns out you can't just ignore a federal lawsuit.
The Ooki DAO verdict was like a legal earthquake. It sent this crystal clear message that decentralized does not mean above the law. But it didn't solve everything, not by a long shot. The really big questions for the entire industry are still very much on the table.
So even with this major court victory, regulators are still facing some massive challenges. For starters, crypto is totally global. It's borderless. So whose laws even apply? Then there's the speed. This tech is changing so fast, the rulebook is basically obsolete the second it's written. There's a huge lack of solid data, and without all the countries working together, crypto projects can just pack up and move to wherever the rules are weakest.
And believe me, the debate over how to actually regulate this stuff is just getting fired up. The system in the US right now is all fragmented, with different agencies in charge of different things. I mean, you have experts at places like the Brookings Institution proposing some pretty radical ideas, like literally merging the two main financial regulators, the SEC and the CFTC, just to handle this stuff. That just shows you how deeply this technology is shaking the very foundations of how government works. And that really brings us back to the big final question here. We've seen that old laws can be stretched to fit this new tech, like with the Ooki DAO case. But is that really a long-term solution? Is it just a band-aid? Are we just watching regulations slowly tame the Wild West? Or are we actually seeing the beginning of a much bigger shift, where this new technology forces all of us to completely rethink the rules of finance itself? The answer is still being written, one line of code and one court case at a time. And one thing is for sure, the future of finance is very much up for grabs.